You see that, you guys? I have biceps, and today's tutorial is all about the full bicep adjustment. So if that's something that you might be interested in, please keep on watching. Hey Stitchers, your girl Kris here. Welcome or welcome back to my channel Unsewcial, where it's totally cool to be obsessed with sewing. So for today's video, I'm going to be demonstrating for you how to go about performing a full bicep adjustment. But first, let me tell you what I'm wearing. So for today's video, I am rocking Simplicity 8381, this off-the-shoulder top that I made a couple years ago. I love this top. I think it's perfect for warm weather, obviously, because your shoulders and neck are exposed, and it's very loose and floaty. So for those of you who are heading into the spring and summer months, if you have not given this pattern a try, perhaps you might consider doing so. Now, I'm not 100% sure if it's out of production, but I'll go and take a peek on the Simplicity website, and I'll leave the information down below in the description box. Now, about the full bicep adjustment. Now, when you're working with sleeve garments, you might find that your sleeve is a little bit too snug, and you need to introduce some more ease into your sleeve pattern. And that is what a full bicep adjustment does. It has the effect of adding additional ease just at your bicep area while leaving your sleeve cap and your hem the same circumference. Now, your full bicep adjustment needs to be performed for the full amount of ease that you require. Unlike, for example, in a full bust adjustment where you're doing half the amount because you're working on half a pattern. When it comes to your sleeve, you're working on the full sleeve pattern, and so your bicep adjustment needs to be for the full amount. Now, in my case, my bicep is 13 inches, and the finished bicep measurement for this particular garment that I'm working on was 14¼ inches. I much prefer to have at least 2 inches of ease in my sleeves just so that I can move about quite freely. So because my finished garment measurement was 14¼ inches and my bicep was 13 inches, I went about adding an additional 1 inch of ease at my bicep level, which took my finished sleeve bicep up to 15¼ inches, thereby giving me 2¼ inches worth of ease in my sleeve. Now, for this particular adjustment, I wouldn't recommend doing the bicep adjustment for greater than an inch or maybe an inch and a half or so using this particular tutorial, just because it does have the effect of lowering your sleeve cap, and you don't want to be messing with your sleeve cap too much. So again, if you're going to use my tutorial, I would recommend maxing out at about an inch and a half in your full bicep adjustment. So let's get started. I have gone ahead and traced off a size 16 sleeve because this is the sleeve that will match with my arm size. However, the finished garment measurement for the size 16 is 14¼ inches across the bicep. Now, my bicep is about 13 inches, and I do like to have about 2 inches of ease in my sleeves. So ideally, my sleeve needs to be 15 inches. Now, I'm going to do a full bicep adjustment on this sleeve, and I'm actually going to add an inch to the bicep adjustment, which will take my finished garment measurement from a 14¼ to a 15¼ So the first thing that we need to do is we need to draw in a line that is perpendicular to our grain line and that goes through the bicep marking. Now, your bicep marking on your sleeve pattern has a cross. Is that a cross? A cross shape, and this demarcates where your bicep is. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a perpendicular marking right through that bicep mark. Once I have done this, I want to find the center point of my sleeve. Now, I do have some scrap paper left around my sleeve edges, but I am just going to line up my side seams like so, and I'm going to put a crease in my sleeve. Now, the reason I'm doing this is the marking that is at the top of your sleeve head is not always through the center of the sleeve, and so I just want to make sure that when I cut my sleeve apart, that I'm cutting through the center of my sleeve, like so. So you'll notice that this mark right here demarcates where the sleeve is attached to the shoulder line, but the crease is over here, which is about maybe 3/4 inch or so away from your sleeve marking, which goes into your shoulder seam right here. All right, once I have my crease in place, I'm just going to go over my crease with my ruler. And again, this goes through the apex point, which was demarcated before. So this is what your sleeve should look like in quarters. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark in the seam allowance at the top of my sleeve, which is 5/8 of an inch. I'm just going to put a mark in. And the hem of my sleeve is actually 1.25 inches, but I am just going to mark up. Actually, I think I'm going to mark up the 1.25 inches, just like so. All right, once we have our sleeve markings in place, we need to cut our sleeve. But we have to cut our sleeve in such a way that we are not cutting through the sleeve. So again, I'm going to fold my sleeve in half right here. I'm going to use my scissors and put a snip right through the sleeve, like so. Once I have a snip in, I can open it back up. I did forget to mark in my seam allowances at my side seam, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Like so. And on the opposite side as well. All right, your seam allowances are important because we don't want to cut through our side seams. So I'm going to cut right up to the seam allowance mark and stop. Turn the sleeve around and cut right up through the side seam allowance mark and stop here. All right, then I'm going to go in from my side seam towards that marking, taking care not to cut through it like so, so that I can create a hinge point. I'm going to repeat the process on the opposite side. Okay, once we have that in place, we're going to cut through center of our sleeve as well, up to the seam allowance marking, and then back through from the top to create a hinge point. And then finally, we're going to cut down our sleeve up and right before our hinge point, and then back up from the bottom. All right, so our sleeve is now in shambles. So I'm going to use my pattern weight just to keep my sleeve in place. I've grabbed a piece of scrap paper and I've just folded it in half so I could find the center of my scrap piece. So I'm going to open it up. And because I'm going to do a 1-inch full bicep adjustment, I want to draw in my pencil line down the center of the sleeve, the center of my scrap paper, I beg your pardon. And then I'm going to draw a line which is 1/2 inch to each side of my first line. So like so. And then like so. Now, if you need a smaller bicep adjustment, then you'll just go ahead and mark in the small amount. So if you need a 1/2 inch bicep adjustment, you're going to go ahead and mark in a 1/4 inch on one side and a 1/4 inch on the other side. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this full bicep adjustment if you need a bicep adjustment that is greater than 1 inch, because the bicep adjustment has the effect of distorting your sleeve head. So I would max out my bicep adjustment using this method at 1 inch. All right, so I'm going to slip my piece of scrap behind my cut sleeve, and I'm just going to place the top of my sleeve head right on that center line. I'm going to hold it in place using a pattern weight. Now I want to move my bicep pieces so they are on the 1/2 inch lines that we drew in right at the tip, like so. I'm just going to hold it into place for the minute using my pattern weights. Now you want to make sure that your pieces remain flat, and so you might need to go ahead and adjust just a little bit so that your pieces remain flat and not buckled. I'm going to repeat the same thing on the lower sleeve, and there is going to be an overlap in your sleeve. So again, I want the center of my sleeve right on the middle line, and then I want the sides of my sleeve right here where we cut across to be right at the 1/2 inch marking. So I'm going to just, right, I need to push it up some more so that my side seams remain flat and my center line is on the center line of my sleeve. So again, you might have to tweak this quite a bit to make sure you get it right. So I'm just going to use my weights at the minute just to hold things in place until I'm satisfied that I have everything lined up correctly, and then I can go ahead and apply some tape. All right, I'm just, again, as I said, smoothing and making sure that everything is nicely in place. The reason is we want to add the inch to our bicep line right here without adding too much excess at our sleeve head and at our sleeve hem. So we want to make sure that our pieces are lining up correctly. So again, you might need to take a little time to tweak it and make sure that your sleeve is laying as it should. Now, once I'm satisfied with where everything is, I'm going to go ahead and tape my sleeve into place. All right, because there has been so much overlap here at our bicep, we have lost some of the length of our sleeve. So we need to go back in and true up our sleeve. To do this, I'm just lining up the edges of my sleeve near the hemline right here with the pattern which is beneath. And I'm just going to hold it into place. And I'm just going to follow the original line in order to true up my sleeve hem. Otherwise, you'll have a hike up in the middle of your sleeve, which I don't think anybody really wants. I'm just following along my line like so. Now I should have added a little bit of extra pattern paper, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just remove this. I'm just going to slip this beneath like so, just to fill it in. On the other side. Oops, like so. All right, and then I can finish truing up my sleeve hem. Maybe do we have that right? It's a little bit tricky for me to see it at the angle that I am in order to demonstrate, but I'm going to go ahead and tidy it back up off camera. But just so you have an idea of what you're meant to do, this is what you're meant to do to true up your sleeve hem. Once you have trued up your sleeve hem, you want to as well true up your sleeve cap. Now your cap shape might be lower than the original sleeve, but you just need to go ahead and make sure your line is smooth at the sleeve head, just like so. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just tidy up my hem off camera right here, and then I'm going to cut out my sleeve and get rid of the excess paper around the perimeter of my sleeve. I did forget to mention that we need to go ahead and true up our side seams as well. So I'm just going to line up my ruler with the top of my sleeve under the arm side and with just the bottom of my sleeve before we meet the markings for the hemline. I'm going to repeat the process on the other side of the sleeve. Just like so. So now we can cut. So we now have a finished sleeve with a 1-inch full bicep adjustment. So now that my adjustment is complete, I can go ahead and cut out my sleeve out of my fabric. All right, you guys, there you have it, a demonstration of the full bicep adjustment. Now, this adjustment is not very difficult, but it can get a little tricky just making sure that all of your sleeve pieces remain flat. You don't want to have any buckling at all when you're doing this adjustment. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you benefited from this tutorial, be sure to go ahead and give me a thumbs up and drop me a comment down below letting me know whether you have to do a full bicep adjustment and whether you will consider using this tutorial. Now, if you have made it this far into today's video, please also consider hitting the subscribe icon and turning on your notification bell. Now, subscriptions cost you absolutely nothing, but they do guarantee you a spot right here in my sewing community on YouTube. Now, that's all I wanted to share with you guys today, and I'll be back hopefully on Wednesday to share something new. So until next time, stay calm, stay cool, stay safe, and absolutely keep sewing. Peace.